Hi everyone! I am here with the last video in the series of keeping our joints nice and healthy for kayaking. So I'm actually going to combine both knee and ankle in the same video, mainly because what we do for the knee winds up helping to strengthen the ankle and vice versa. So ankles and knees aren't necessarily the biggest things at risk in the world of kayaking when you think about neck injuries, shoulder injuries, hip pain, things like that. However, they still take a lot of compression and they still can take a lot of strain when in our boats. So they still get affected, and that's why it's important to keep them strong and healthy. So our knees need to be mobile. Our ankles need to be stable. We also sit in our boats with our hips internally rotated, so our knees are out to the side, and so often that means that our inner thighs or the inner part of our knee takes a lot more work than the outer part of our knee. And so there can be some muscle imbalance there, which can create some issues in the knee as well. So a lot of knee pain can come from a few things. One, it can come from meniscal issues. So you can have a tear in your meniscus, or it can be fraying or something like that. It can actually be your patella tendon, the tendon that holds your kneecap in place. That can take some trauma. It can fray, tear, things like that. But often, 9 times out of 10, your knee pain actually comes from your main muscle in the front of your leg. So your thigh has 4 muscles in it, and one muscle crosses over the hip and it attaches right on the front of the knee. And we tend to have really tight hips, like we talked about in the last video. And so that main muscle gets really tight and it pulls the knee out of place. And often that's where our knee pain comes from. So a lot of what we need to do is actually stretch out the front of the hips and strengthen the muscles that support the knee. Because you can't train the knee itself, right? It's just a joint, so there's not really, you've got to support it. The cool part about this is regardless of whether it has to do with your meniscus, whether it has to do with the patella tendon, whether it has to do with tight muscle, all of the rehab for it is the same. So it's whatever pain you have, you'll be able to do these exercises and it will relieve that pain and it will strengthen your knee. A lot of things for the ankle tends to become unstable, and especially with kayaking, it's kind of weird because we crush, we get that ankle nice and tight in our boat and it gets some compression, of course, because we're pushing on it a lot when we're play boating, and sometimes you can hit rocks and things like that and piton and get some extra compression when you are creeking. So regardless, it's stuck in a certain angle for an entire day of kayaking, and you're constantly pushing on it that way when you're activating your legs while you're taking your paddle strokes. So what we need to do with our ankles is, one, we do need to practice a little bit of mobility there in order to keep it stretched out after it's been locked in that position all day. And we often need to get it super strong and stable as well, because again, the more supported it is, the less issues we'll have there. So if you have an ankle injury, if you ever have sprained, strained, anything like that to your ankle, science shows that you don't really ever get your full stability back. So it's not like you can just recover from that ankle injury and then you're good to go. You actually always have a high propensity for another ankle sprain or strain, what have you, if you've had one previously. And a lot of us, if we were active children, we already lost out on that whenever we were kiddos. I know for me it was playing soccer growing up. I had quite a few ankle sprains growing up playing soccer. So ankle stability is something I have to work on all of the time. The cool part about that is you can actually do it. I tell my clients to do it like when you're brushing your teeth or when you're cooking, where you're just working on some balance stuff, standing on one leg, doing some heel raises, things like that. So you can kind of do that throughout the day and you'll be good to go. All you need for this is a mat, and you need a band and something to wrap the band around, okay? So I'm gonna show you some strengthening stuff for the knee and for the ankle. Again, they go hand in hand. So a lot of what we do for the ankle strengthens the knee, vice versa. And honestly, because our body is a chain, it actually helps to strengthen the hips as well and take away some hip pain. So it's really, these are great things to add as a warm-up to your workouts or even on the end of your workouts, okay? So we're actually gonna start pretty straightforward. I have a band just attached to an anchor point. You can wrap around a pole, anything like that. I love this one as a warm-up in particular, or you can get a thicker band and it will turn it into a strength training exercise during your actual workout. First things first, it's really important not to put the band right at the crease of your knee, so bring it just above, okay, where the muscles are. I like to step back to where I have enough tension on the band already. Most of the weight is in my foot that's not in the band, and that gives me the ability to bend my knee a little bit more, but all you're doing is straightening your knee and letting it bend and let the band pull it back. So you're pulling against that resistance. So here you can actually get a pretty stiff band to do this, and you will feel the bottom part of your quads start to activate, okay? So this is one of the best things that you could do for your knee. And like I said, if you do have a lot of knee pain or a knee injury, this is the perfect thing to do to help recover from that. It's a great thing for warm-ups. I do this a lot with my tennis players and any of my athletes that have to do a lot of lateral movement or that have to do a lot of bending in their knees. Okay, so you can easily do 15 to 20 of that, if not more, especially if it's a warm-up. Number 2 is what's called a Peterson step down. You can use a step, you can use some books, you can use a yoga block, you can use pretty much anything that gives you at least a few inches off the ground. I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do this, okay? So we're gonna stand on our top step. I'm gonna get as close as possible to the edge with my inside foot, okay? So here, it's my left foot, that's my inside foot, my right foot's the one hanging down. The first style of Peterson step down you can do, this can be a warm-up, and this is really good for people who do have chronic knee pain to start with, and then work up into the second variation. All you're gonna do, you're hinging at the hips, and you're stepping down all the way, shifting the weight, bringing it back in. So when you step down, my weight will shift into my right foot, then I'll step back up, okay? It's really important to hinge at the hips and lean forward here, because if you try to do this coming straight down, all of your weight goes into the joint itself and not into the muscles that are surrounding the joint that actually support the joint, okay? So just stepping down and stepping up. That's option 1. Great warm up, okay? Step 2, the actual Peterson step down, variation 2, for those of you who have chronic knee pain, it's something to work up to. What I'm gonna do is let my right foot hang. I'm gonna pull my toes up towards me, okay? Immediately you'll feel that engaging in the front of your leg. I'm still hinging forward in order to keep my weight in my quads, and I'm gonna tap my right heel and come back up. So my weight does not shift into my right foot at all. What this is doing is it's working my left knee and my left ankle, okay? And it can cause a little bit of a balance, so if you need a balance issue, so if you need to have something kind of close, just to have there just in case, please do that. All right, so those are your 2 Peterson step downs. Variation 2 is the actual Peterson step down, so it's the goal that you want to work up to. Then we move on to the ankles. Something super simple is you can do heel raises, okay? Again, you can do that anytime throughout the day. You can also do toe raises, but if you notice, your heels, on your heels, you can lift really, really high when you're lifting your heels, but when you lift your toes, you can't lift them that high, or else you'll fall over, okay? So the range of motion you have to press your toes away from you is a lot more than you have to pull them toward you, okay? Option 2 for those heel raises, you can actually hang over a step, let your heels drop, and you're lifting them nice and high, okay? You can use, again, a book, a plate if you're at the gym, step, anything like that. And then the most important part of ankle maintenance and ankle stability is actually doing a lot of single leg stuff. So I actually like to have my clients do a lot of hopping on one leg, and more importantly, hopping directionally. So hopping front and back for about 30 seconds. I usually time these instead of count. So 20 to 30 seconds hopping front to back, and 20 to 30 seconds hopping side to side. It's a lot harder than it seems, so it is important if you've not done these before, you can start with 2 legs at first and then move to 1 because it's very taxing on the knee and on the ankle. And then finally, the 2 stretches that I like to do to help keep my ankle and my knee pain free, just like in the hip video, the last video that I did, I like to come into half kneeling. So tucking the hips under, Elvis pelvis, shifting forward, stretching the front of the hip. So anything that you can do to stretch the front of the hip is really, really great. So this half kneeling pose, pretty much anyone can do this comfortably. So this is why I recommend this one as much as I do. But if you do want a more aggressive hip opener, you can come onto your hands and knees, into your plank. You can actually step 1 foot forward. So what it looks like from the front, that foot is on the outside of your hands, okay? And then what you do here is you can let your hips sink here. What it does is it actually opens up the front of your hips even more. We're letting gravity kind of take over. If that's a little bit much, you can put your knee down. And if it's not enough, you can start to pull your elbows to the ground. It's a pretty aggressive stretch if you have really tight hips and tight back, so it's why I don't talk about that one as much. Then the next thing that you can do to open up the ankles, you got a couple things. You can come to half kneeling again, but this time you're actually gonna pull your foot kind of close. And what you're gonna do is try to keep your ankle on the ground while you press your hips forward this time. And the stretch is gonna come in the back of the ankle and the back of the calf at the bottom, in your heel. And then come back. The other thing that you can do is come to a wall. We've talked about this before in past videos. Put your toes up on the wall and then press your hips forward. And the other variation of that is you can also bend your knee. And this one is the perfect one for your ankles as well. So plenty of options for strengthening, plenty of options for mobility. If you do have any questions, let me know. I have a series of workouts for kayakers that are gonna come up next that will give you some things that you can add into your workouts to help your performance in the boat. But if you do have any questions, specific muscles, specific injuries, things like that, please let me know, because I just want to be able to help you and be a resource to make kayaking and keep kayaking fun and enjoyable. One of the biggest things as to why people get out of sports is just because they get injured and they can never feel right again to get enough back into it. So let me help you stay in it. Bye.